All right, things have stabilized, I guess you could say, for the 49ers after that disastrous loss in week 3 to the LA Rams. They come back and it wasn't a great performance against the New England Patriots. I gave them, I think, overall grade of a B minus for their 30-13 victory over the New England Patriots. But what it did for the 49ers is it really kind of solidified where they are in the NFC West when you think about that division. And nobody was going to go and run away and hide in this division. If there were a team that's going to do that, it's going to be the 49ers, and they still might end up doing that. But 49ers had fallen behind by 2 games in the division, and they were the only team to come out of week 4 with a victory of the NFC West teams. Rams lose to the Bears. The Arizona Cardinals get blown out by the Washington Commanders. And then Seattle hung tough, put up some big time yards, but could not stop Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. So Seattle loses on Monday Night Football 42-29. So now the Seahawks are the only team in the division with an above 500 record. 49ers are a step behind at 2-2. And then you have the Arizona Cardinals and the Rams pulling up the rear at 1-3. So last year, if you recall, kind of the sequence of the 49ers schedule that was going to kind of make or break was right after the bye week. And if you recall, the 49ers did not face uh, the Seattle Seahawks until much later in the season. They played them in week 12 and then in week 14. And sandwiched between that was the game in Philadelphia. And so the thinking was, man, if the 49ers can win 2 out of those 3 games, they're sitting pretty. Well, what happened? They won all 3 of those games, and they won 6 consecutive games after the bye week. And that pretty much set them on the stage to get the number 1 seed and then advance through the playoffs and go to the Super Bowl. So this year, I think the key part of the schedule is right now. It's upon us. It's coming after the week 4. It's the second block of 4 games where the 49ers have Arizona on Sunday, a division matchup, and then a short turnaround for a Thursday game in Seattle, another key game there. 49ers would have an opportunity, at least potentially, to pull into a tie for the division lead, and then, of course, take the tiebreaker lead because they'd have the head-to-head advantage on Seattle. And then it's the game against Kansas City and the game against the Dallas Cowboys and then the bye week. So let's just kind of go through this right now where the 49ers are. This is a big one coming up against Arizona, which, they've shown flashes. They played some good games. They played some not good games. They blew out the Rams. They played the Lions tough, and then they get blown out by Washington. But, their formula is, the running game with James Conner. Of course, he's up around 300 yards in these 4 games, but their passing game now, I think, is much better. Kyler Murray appears to be playing the best football of his career. His completion percentage is up around 70%, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, passer rating of over 100, and he's also running for some big yards as well. So, Brock Purdy won't be the only scrambling quarterback out there on Sunday. This Kyler Murray guy is kind of in that Brock Purdy class as far as being a runner. Obviously, I'm joking, but Brock Purdy has shown the ability to pick up some yards with his legs. He has 8 first downs rushing in the first 4 games. Of course, Kyler Murray, that's a big part of what he wants to do. And he has a big time weapon in Marvin Harrison, the rookie, who has 15 catches for 243 yards and 4 touchdowns in these first 4 games. And maybe a little bit later, I'll talk about some of the guys on the 49ers that have been excelling in some of the grades. It's kind of tough to quantify how well these guys are playing, but and I know it's not perfect as far as PFF goes. Players often push back at PFF, especially if they don't have good grades. If they have great grades, no one complains. But if they're down on the list, they always kind of go to PFF and say, well, you didn't know what my assignment was on that play. But anyway, it's an objective barometer of how guys are playing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Okay, so this two-game stretch, first off, the division opponents, key for the 49ers against the Cardinals, and then they bounce back against the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle plays on Sunday at home against the Giants. So they don't have to travel. They have a little bit of an advantage there. And then Geno Smith coming off a huge game, 395 yards passing against the Lions. But Seattle just couldn't slow down the Lions passing attack in their entire offense. So a couple of interesting games here because of where the the Seattle is, where Arizona is, coaches with experience going up against the 49ers. And we talked on the last one or yesterday, we talked a lot about how defenses have been kind of diagnosing and maybe a step ahead or anticipating correctly more often than not what the 49ers are doing offensively. So we'll see just that cat and mouse game of if the 49ers can use their past tendencies to set up other plays on the offense. And when you think about the 49ers offense right now, it's kind of remarkable what they're doing. So much attention given to the draft picks that they've got, the all pro guys that they got, the big time players. But right now, when you look at the offensive playmakers for the 49ers, it's uh, the number two rusher in the league, Jordan Mason, 447 yards, 33 behind Derrick Henry for the NFL lead at this point. Undrafted free agent from Georgia Tech. Wasn't even a starter his final 2 years at Georgia Tech. The number two passer in the league, Brock Purdy, obviously the last overall pick in the draft. And by the way, he is number two in the NFL with 1,130 yards passing. That's behind Geno Smith, but he's number one again in yards per pass attempt at 9.3 yards per pass attempt. Those are just crazy numbers. And he led the league last year in that category. And he is a full half yard ahead of the number two guy in the NFL through 4 games, that being Sam Darnold. And then the number four receiver in the league as far as receiving yards, Jawan Jennings. 21 catches, 364 yards. And remember, he was not only a seventh round draft pick of the 49ers in 2020, he was also released at the end of training camp. So he was available for any team to pick him up. The 49ers brought him back to the practice squad where he spent most of that rookie season, got injured late in the year. And then in 2021, that's where he made his mark. So 49ers doing it in a lot of different ways as they get set for this big 4 week stretch. Did I mention after they play Arizona, after they play Seattle, two big games in 5 days that will kind of, in many ways, kind of set the tone for the rest of the season in the NFC West? They play Kansas City and Dallas. Two big games, obviously. And you think, oh, that's fortuitous for the 49ers. They face Kansas City on a long week. They play Thursday and then the following Sunday. So 10 days later, they play Kansas City. Well, guess what? Kansas City has the rest advantage because they have the bye week. And then the following week, when the 49ers play the Dallas Cowboys, guess what? The Dallas Cowboys are coming off their bye week. So schedule not exactly working in the 49ers' favor as they hit this critical 4 game stretch before they go into their bye week, their typical bye week, week 9 of the regular season. Okay, so I mentioned Marvin Harrison earlier, and I want to highlight a guy on the 49ers who I think is having a spectacular year. In fact, I would say that he's been the 49ers easily their third best defensive player. You could probably make an argument that he is their second best defensive player, but I'm going to stick it. He's their third best defensive player right now. That's Diamador Lenoir playing outside in base situations. They swing him inside. He is going to see a lot of Marvin Harrison because watching a little bit of the Cardinals, they do move Harrison around. They do play a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. And so Lenoir will be over Harrison a lot in this game. And for the season, Lenoir has been targeted 21 times, according to PFF. He's given up only 13 receptions for only 108 yards in those 4 games, and he has 2 passes defense. So Diamador Lenoir, I'm telling you, folks, we talked about this. I guess probably before I got going with this YouTube channel, I talked a lot about how I could see this being Diamador Lenoir's breakout season. And I think that that is exactly what's happening. And he is setting himself up for a very big payday. And it's one of these things where, with all the 49ers contract situations, we've talked a lot about Brock Purdy and other people, but, don't sleep on Lenoir. I think he's the one guy that, uh, they should be trying to lock up. Maybe that ship has sailed for them, but a scheduled to be an unrestricted free agent, and I think he'll be really sought after on that market. Okay, so going back to PFF grades, um, I want to talk a little bit about for the season. Well, coming off of this game, because I received some questions about the offensive line. The offensive line was really good against the Patriots. Now, granted, they weren't going up against a great defensive line, but just for an objective opinion, PFF, when they graded the 49ers offense and defensive players, 4 of their top 6 graded players on offense coming out of the game against the Patriots were offensive linemen, including 1 and 2. Dominic Puni was their highest graded player, period. Trent Williams, for offense anyway. Trent Williams was number 2, followed by Juwan Jennings, followed by Colton McKivitz, George Kittle at 5, and Jake Brendel, center, at 6. And Colton McKivitz has, I guess you could say, quietly had a very good season through the first 4 games. The only kind of blemish, yeah, he's given up some pressures, but the only blemish being the strip sack against the Rams that he allowed. Defensively, um, coming out of that game, Warner and Bosa, and those are the 2 guys that I was talking about who are the 49ers' 2 best defensive players. And then on fewer snaps, Sam Okwanu, who's defensive end, he was graded out number 3 by PFF from this game. Isaac Yiadom, only 16 snaps. Bernardo Green took over for him in the second half. He had a good game in his 16 snaps. He graded out number 4. And then Diamador Lenoir 5, and Kevin Givens 6. And for the season offensively, Jennings is the 49ers' highest graded player, followed by Purdy, Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Colton McKivitz. So McKivitz probably surprises you a little bit, but I looked it up, and again, according to PFF, he is graded out as the 16th highest graded tackle in the NFL. And that includes left tackles and right tackles. So of 64 starting tackles, he's graded out as 16th best in the NFL. Trent Williams is 4th. As far as McKivitz goes, he grades out higher, better as a run blocker than as a pass protector. So are the a lot of questions. Again, I get these every week when I do my 49ers overreactions piece at NBCSportsBayArea.com about the offensive line. It's going to kill the team, this and that. And I think objectively, when you look at all the 49ers position groups, probably offensive line is the one position group where it's not as strong as their quarterback position, probably not as strong as their running back position, with Jordan Mason doing a heck of a job while Christian McCaffrey is out. Not as strong as the receivers, tight ends. So I guess it's understandable that there is concern about the offensive line. But then when you look at what Jordan Mason is doing as a running back, the yards that he's gained, number 2 rusher in the league. When you look at Brock Purdy, quarterback, who is number 2 in passing yards in the league, the offensive line has to be doing something right. So, is it a concern down the road? I think the offensive line will get better because there's continuity with that group. But I would say through 4 games, the offensive line has not been a problem in the big picture. And then defensively, still some things the 49ers need to shore up. And I'm not sure that the game against the Patriots is a big indicator, because the Patriots just really don't have much going on offensively, from a banged up and not real talented offensive line that they have to just kind of a toothless passing attack. So anyway, That's where we are, 49ers 2-2, facing two big division games coming up, and then followed by two big games that will get a lot of national attention against Kansas City and the Dallas Cowboys. Thank you for tuning in to this YouTube channel. And if you have any questions or topics that you would want me to address coming up, feel free to put it in the comment section down below. Uh, Subscribe, like, do all those things. And well, that's it for now.